Alright, so I've gone and gotten myself a cup of coffee and gave this enough time to dry, and came back in and drilled approximately 5 holes into this all the way around. Tried to keep them evenly spaced. And then I've taken the toothpicks here and broke them up. Broke them all in half. So what we're going to do is we're going to apply the pins now to pin it in place and just make sure that it really holds. And this is a pretty standard, straightforward process. All I do is I just take and put a little dab of glue here, and I work the toothpick itself and try to fill that hole a little bit more, all the way in, And then I take the hammer and once they break off, that's that. And it's the same pretty much all the way around. Sometimes with these toothpicks you find some of them will take a beating and other ones will want to snap on you real quick, but in reality it comes down to they're still going to do their job whether they break or not, because the glue is already holding everything in place to begin with. This is just extra security, so to speak. And you don't have to hit it hard or anything like that, just a couple of taps just to set it in place, set it home. And I can get my hands here. That'll really just help secure it a little bit better. And I wanted to make a note about when I was doing the plug. If you noticed how I showed at one point that seal, it wasn't a very good seal. There was a couple of gaps and whatnot. Obviously we took care of that, but if you run into a problem to where if you're doing this and it's not quite airtight, you're still getting air coming through, you really don't want that. But there's an easy, very easy fix for that. And all it is it's you make a putty using the wood glue and the horn dust. You just take that horn dust, mix in some of the glue, and you're basically making kind of a cement out of it. There we go. That one wants to work. Good. Snap that off just like that. Get the excess glue off. And there's that. And we'll make this look pretty by taking the file, running that file all the way around, and get a nice flush. The toothpicks don't always break off nice and flush. You get these little jagged edges and whatnot. You don't really want those, so you just take the file to it and get a nice flush line all the way around. And that's how you do that. But as I was saying about the seal around the base, if you can't get that sealed just right, just take a dab of your horn glue or your wood glue and run it along the base, and then just take some of your horn dust, because you're going to work up some horn dust, and work it in there. Take a toothpick and take some of the horn dust and just run it along the bead like that, and then just take and press it in using a toothpick. And that'll help seal and fill in those gaps and still keep it air and water tight, which is the most important part of any horn that you're going to make, especially if you're planning on carrying black powder. You want it to be air and water tight. That's the only time it's functional and proper, is if it's air and water tight. Everything else is just art. So the two big things to remember is again, air and water tight, but then also weight. I've noticed that a lot of horn workers, for some reason, they like it. They don't like to get their horns too thin, and it's understandable. They're worried about stability of the horn, the security of it, and that's all right. It's just the thing I'm worried about is it's a container, and a horn as a vessel, the weight of the vessel itself would detract from the weight of whatever that vessel is meant to hold. So I try to make the horn as light and thin as I can while still maintaining its strength. You know, it's not going to get compromised at all as far as stability is concerned. So this is still a really solid piece, but it's really thin. If you hold it up to a light, you can see through this pretty well. So, and again, just an example, you just give her a blow, and if you can't feel any air, or you know you're not getting any air through, you're set. So now we're going to move over to making this into a semi-domed plug. Put my coffee here. And this is probably, the easiest part. All it is the same as when you were doing the base. I should note, you notice how, again, I was telling you that a lot of people will tell you that has to be the exact same width all the way around, etc. This is why I don't really bother with it, because I'm going to sand, and I'm going to get everything to flow flush to this. So here's how it goes. You'll notice all I'm doing is doing a rocking motion. I'm working the around the base of the horn first, and then working it back up into the center. So this is getting consistently smaller and smaller while still maintaining a circle or an oval. So then I'm going to go this way and then this way. And you notice the grain pattern. I try to keep, when I do a plug, I try to keep the grains going along the line of the horn, just like the grains on the horn itself. I'm going to keep them going with that. Okay? And this goes back to the whole, certain tools being more useful than others. I could be sitting here with a file, just filing and filing and filing and filing. This is just my way of doing it, and for me it's just easier to do it this way. But as you can see, I've already taken off quite a bit. I'm going to keep rounding it off because I want it as ovular and low domed as I can while still keeping it even with the rest of the horn. Just keep working in that circle, again, because that's what you're going for, is a semi-dome look and feel to it. So trying to keep it to where the horn and the plug flow together. Everything kind of flows together. There's not going to be a lot of gaps, like right here, that little bit of a ledge. I just want to get rid of that and try to keep everything to where it starts here, but it doesn't end until it's down here kind of look. Okay. Now what I usually do here is I'll take some 80 grit or 120 grit sandpaper, and by hand, I don't know why, it's just my way of doing it, I guess. I find that this is it helps make me feel better about myself when I do it this way. But again, you're just kind of twisting and getting everything as organic looking as you possibly can, where it doesn't look like they don't belong together. You want everything to look like it belongs together. A nice flow into everything. And there's that. So what I'll do here is now I'm going to work this down. I've already used the heavier grit. I'm going to start using 200 grit on both this, and I'm going to work 200 grit, and then 400 grit, and then the quadruple steel wool on these, on both pieces, just to get it a nice satin or fine finish, polished finish, just like the body of the horn was when I got it.